Well, hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. I've no idea where any of you are in the world, but I'm hoping that you're listening, and it's nice to have you here on episode 3 of the ChatGCC Podcast with me, Richard Askam. I'm in the UK today. It's a beautiful sunny spring day, so I've taken several layers of clothes off, and I'm actually wearing shorts. But you'll never know whether I'm lying or not, and that's fine too. My guest today is one of our, well, let's call them AI Avengers, I think, is probably the best way to describe this, because there's a world out there at the moment that is being populated by headlines and in many ways scare stories, and in many ways we don't understand really what AI is or what it's for or how it can help us. So Carlo's joining me today from Kashima. Good afternoon, I think, where you are, Carlo.
Yep, afternoon from Dubai.
How are you doing?
I'm good, thank you very much. Nice and refreshed after a chilled out holiday for Ramadan and Eid. Nice.
That's nice. We won't dwell on that because you're obviously having a much better life than I am. So that's fine. We'll leave that where it is. But you're joining me today, Carlo, really to talk about almost AI unplugged. And let's take away all of the noise and all of the myths and everything that's talked about. But let's start, if I may, by tell me a little bit about how you ended up in this world and where Kashima came from, where the name came from. Just give, for anybody listening or watching, give us a little bit of background.
I started in tech sales and tech consulting back in '99 when the internet was still a fairly new thing, advising businesses on the benefits of websites and the benefits of connecting their offices with internet connections. And that's kind of set the tone for my whole career. I've always been in new tech. And the tech never really interested me, to be honest with you. It was more understanding my customers, understanding their businesses, and looking to identify where the tech would be able to help them. So I was kind of like, whenever I was in a sales role, I was the one who wasn't motivated by money. I was motivated by success.
Okay.
And the way I described that to sales directors was, well, if I'm successful, I'm going to get the money anyway. So, 6 of one, half dozen the other. And that 26 year career has touched traditional AI in many points, actually. Traditional algorithms, machine learning, all of this, the old generation AI stuff before this new generative AI that came in 22. It was actually in 22, I was working for a local company here in the UAE, application modernization company, brilliant technically company, brilliant engineers there. And I started using ChatGPT myself. And we were short of engineers to do like a technical scoping on projects. So I'll just do it myself. I mean, I've got enough domain expertise that I can wield the tool. And I was winning RFPs on my own, technical RFPs on my own, and I'm not a deep technical person. It was just obvious. This is as monumental as the internet. This is as monumental as mobile phones. This is a revolution, basically.
Yeah, it's the next Wild West, isn't it, basically?
It's insane. It's insane. I mean, only yesterday. Well, I won't go into the detail of what I was doing, right? But
Yes.
Mum's the word. But the amount of work I was able to get through yesterday, which is outside of my domain expertise, because I have the ability to go and find the information that I need, build an AI model that then will be a specialist in that and be able to coach me. It's honestly, the word I use all the time is insane, because this stuff is insane. You asked me about Koshima. So Koshima is an island on the south of Japan, and it's inhabited by monkeys only. They've been observed by scientists from 1952 or something like that. One young monkey called Imo was found washing their primary diet, sweet potatoes, in the sea. Washed off the dirt, added seasoning to it, started teaching this to the other young monkeys. Over 18 months, about 87, I think it was, monkeys were recorded to have learned this behavior. The next day, all the monkeys on the island had started displaying this behavior. It's a phenomenon called the 100th monkey effect, which is all around incremental gains having a transformative effect. And this is perfect for AI.
Yeah.
It's perfect. It's perfect.
And that young monkey, of course, went on to be Gordon Ramsay, which not many people know. I love that. I love that story, though, and this. You make a really good point, even though I'm being deliberately, obtuse. That the evolution of the incremental gains is only available to you if you start with the first one. And I think we live in a world right now. Well, we live in a really interesting world right now, but that all aside, where the risk, if you like, is tipping over the first domino. And once you realize that the first domino can actually bring another 8 with it, then suddenly most businesses will be looking for incremental gains, but they don't necessarily want to take the risk of topping over that first domino. In that parlance, what's the best bit of advice that you can give to a business today that's sitting there going, oh, I don't get all of this about AI? Or the worst thing that they think is, well, AI is just ChatGPT, isn't it?
I mean, ChatGPT is a brilliant tool. It's a brilliant tool. And when I'm in conversations and I mention ChatGPT, I mean, I'm completely open and honest. There's like this millisecond of, oh, I've just mentioned a tool that everyone knows, and I'm just feeding the fire of AI as ChatGPT. However, ChatGPT is crazy. The amount of consumer focus, the tools that they have within that sets it apart from the others. But Rich, you asked an important question, and we get this all the time, right? So we hear about AI, we read about it, we hear our competitors are using it, we don't know what to do. How do we start? There are 3 pillars to AI adoption. The first one is workforce productivity. The second one is business process optimization. The third one is core systems optimization. What do we mean by that? Number 1 is workforce optimization. As a rule of thumb, any white collar worker will be able to save 1, 2, 3 hours a day with the right use of AI productivity tools. This is the low-hanging fruit. The second pillar, business process optimization, is now not people's tasks and activities and workflows, but actually the processes that a department or a function might have. The third area is a bit like open heart surgery, right? It's a bit like British Airlines modernizing their flight planning system, or the National Health Service, although it could probably do with it, overhauling their patient record system, right? I mean, this is difficult, big decision stuff. And a lot of businesses look at this third area. How can we improve the very core of our business? It's the wrong place. It's the wrong place to start. You've got to start with the workforce. And actually, you start getting this crowdsourcing effect. And it's brilliant. When the workforce, the white collar workers, are optimized using AI, they then start coming up against bottlenecks. And those bottlenecks are the business processes. So you start crowdsourcing the areas that you should start looking at for your business process. There is then another challenge, like the ideas are easy, and then how do you know which ones to focus on? But yeah, workforce optimization, AI productivity, this is the area, 100%.
And that's kind of, in many ways, Carlo, what you're describing in the last 150 years since the Industrial Revolution, every element of anything that had to be mass produced has gone through an optimization process. They used to call it a time and motion study back in the day. I am that old to remember that sort of stuff. But in essence, what you're describing here is a pair of eyes, particularly. Let's say AI is the pair of eyes that's looking at the way that you're doing it and seeing if there's a better way. And the business owner or the white collar workers, as you described them, have to decide whether that better way has any consequential benefits or opposite or negatives. Because if you move something on a production line, it's going to do one of two things, isn't it? It's either going to make it better or make it worse. So in many ways, what you're describing, rather simplistically, for me, is how I can improve, how I can access those marginal gains. And AI is going to be the way that allows me to learn, rather than just asking Frank, can you go any quicker? And Frank goes, sorry, mate, no, I'm flat out. And that's typically, that's the past. Show me what the future looks like.
Yeah, I mean, I want to correct you on one thing. You mentioned that give something to AI and it can tell you how it can, improve that. We're not there yet, because the problem is that we need to understand how to drive these tools. Now, when you know how to drive the tools, then you can ask the question of, can you help me in this area? But you've got to describe that area properly. And then you have to use objective thinking and objective feedback, because one of the big problems with this generative AI is that there's no endpoint to it. If I start a project, or if I start an improvement program with something, it's just going to keep going and keep going and keep going and keep going and keep going. So you need to know how to drive it.
And I think that's, back to the mechanical sort of industrial revolution point that I was making badly earlier on. This is no different, right? And this is the way I describe it, Carlo, to people when I get asked this question about AI. From my perspective, it's another tool in the toolkit of life that allows us to do things hopefully better. It is not the end point. It is neither is it the start point. It's just an evolutionary moment in our histories where actually, and this is why I think people are scared of it, because it's reported as being like the all-seeing eye, and everybody's going to lose their jobs and the robots are going to take over the planet, which is a great media headline, but is actually largely nonsense. In the same way that, back in the day, before the car was invented, we just wanted faster horses. So, so this is that whole sort of evolutionary problem. Again, every generation sort of almost repeats the previous generation's thought processes. The difficulty this time, I think, is it's fueled not only by the media, but also by the shouty bloke in the pub, or Twitter, as I like to call it, telling you, "Oh, it must be this because I've heard this," and what have you. And we've all almost, none of us have understood it, and that's why guys like you, are, and particularly you, because the way you describe it to me makes perfect sense. If we can get that sense into more people, they'll see it for what it is, which is an excellent tool for their business.
And this is another problem that we've got, and it's a global problem. And that is that there aren't many organizations talking about what you can do right now. And this is our approach at Koshima. This is our approach as individuals anyway. A lot of organizations, big prominent names in the tech space, who are obviously big and prominent in the AI space now, they will go in and they will dish up a whole load of problems that you've got to fix before you can use AI. Data being the big one. Oh, you've got to get your data in order. You can't do it. Oh, what are we doing? We're doing an 18-month data project. I mean, come on. For the love of God. These are important things. AI relies on data, but these are parallel things. You don't stop your start and you're building momentum to fix something that's always been a problem and will always be a problem, like data. So as Koshima, we've learned generative AI probably about 70% hands-on. And that's given us this ability to talk to individuals, to teams, to businesses from this practical sense. A lot of others have learned from a theoretical perspective.
Yeah.
And so I believe that actually, and this is just coming to me now, really, but I believe that fuels the fire of AI can do this, and it could help you do this. And no one's bringing it down to, it will do this now.
And that really is the blue touch paper for every negative thought ever, isn't it? But what if this happens? And that's kind of who we are as a population, as a society, really, as a species in many ways. Although in many ways that hard wiring of slight negativity, I was told this a few years ago, that we're hardwired to be slightly negative because it stops us from stroking wolves. So we've survived as the apex predator on Earth for however long because we're just slightly reserved, which explains the British completely.
You're listening to the ChatGCC Podcast with me, Richard Askam. Currently not sponsored, but there is an opportunity there if you'd like to get in touch.
Carlo, let's take you back a little bit to your younger self, because I'm always interested how people become interested in things, and there's usually a trigger, often in childhood, where actually you find something that fascinates you, and that becomes the bedrock of the career that you then go on to have. And you mentioned earlier on when we were chatting that actually you you like the outcome of the tech rather than the tech itself. So take yourself back to the, 5-year-old you, 10-year-old you. What was interesting to you as a child that got your brain thinking, this is interesting?
Formula One.
Okay.
Formula One. I was sat down just to shut me up, basically, by my father at the age of 4 years old in front of the TV to watch Formula One. And I've missed about 11 races since in 40 odd years. Yeah, it's crazy. What I love about Formula One is the competitive nature of it, number one. Number two is it's all about precision and it's all about perfection. Now, I'm a bit of a perfectionist and I fight that demon every day, honestly. But in Formula One, they used to have about 16 races a season, and they would have about 3 or 4 upgrades a year. And everyone would know when you get to Barcelona, Catalunya, Barcelona track, everyone would come with their upgrade. And what started happening, and I think it was McLaren that bucked the trend, is instead of having big upgrades, they started having smaller, more often upgrades. Mm-hmm. And this really fascinated me because you would see that they would just steadily improve. A few others would kind of catch up maybe in one race and then catch up on another race. But it was this almost like slow and steady wins the race kind of thing, right? A bit ironic considering it's Formula One. So it's that attention to detail and that engineering side of the sport that I guess really influenced the decision for me to join a company called Demon Internet, which was the first ISP in the UK, actually. First independent ISP in the UK.
I remember.
Yeah, and I was there and I was doing really well. I was doing so well that I was actually brought into their corporate sales team for some training, learned a new technology, and then went back through my old customers who were buying loads of ADSL, if you remember ADSL back in the day.
I do.
And applying what I'd learned. And probably the proudest moment in my sales career was in achieving my 1 year's target just in setup fees for a deal. And that was because I went in and understood the business. I understood what they were doing, why they were doing it, what the problems were that they were trying to solve for. And it completely changed my career because instead of just trying to flog stuff or advise people on stuff, I was actually fixing something.
Yeah, and that's a really good way of putting it, actually, because I guess to go back to the Formula One point, it was the tweaks or the micro tweaks that created the outcomes that were very visible and therefore validated the tweak. And in many ways, bring that forward to your working life now. That's kind of where I guess the same fascination. I always find it interesting, Carlo, and I did a podcast a few weeks ago with a young lady in the UK who works for the Crown Estate, and they manage the seabed around the United Kingdom. And I said, what gets you into wanting to manage the seabed? Yeah. And she said, well, I used to love playing in rock pools when I was a kid. So this is just a bigger rock pool, and I think most of us are inner fascinations. If you're lucky, your working life is what you're fascinated and interested by, because then you're not really working, and you're kind of also getting paid for something that you love to be able to do, which is even better, win-win-win. But I get the sense with you, that the speed that technology is growing at, which is off the charts and it's exponential, as we know. But you do need somebody to just say, just let me take you on one side for a minute and show you what that actually means. Because you can't just have a scale of growth and no understanding of what it means. And am I right in saying that Kashima really, the expertise of what you offer is to help businesses understand the incremental steps and therefore the gains that come from them?
Yeah, it's two main areas we play in. One is training and enablement. Mm-hmm. We don't believe in tool-based training because there's no point learning a tool. You need to learn how to do your job with the tool. So that's the difference that we bring for enablement. And use case identification. Use case is just a use of AI. And identifying these areas that you can use AI in a business is easy. I mean, I can reel off thousands and thousands. None of them mean anything unless you understand the relevance to your business. So Where we specialize in is identifying use cases of business value and then prioritizing them. Now, there's a few companies who do this, of course. The mantra we have is think big, start small, start now. So forget this big. Do you remember I mentioned the data project?
Yeah.
Forget the big data project. Start with something small that you can do tomorrow, next week, by the end of this month. And you start proving those concepts and you start delivering value. Once you've proved the concept and you've delivered a little bit of value, then you can go on these, right, okay. Do you remember I said think big? So what's the vision? The vision is X, Y, Z. We need to fix our data for that. That's fine. So you go on parallel missions, basically. And these missions always provide value. So that's the difference for us. It's forget the procrastination, get stuff done. I mean, you're going to be left behind, basically.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well, I think Richard Branson coined it brilliantly many years ago in "Screw it, just do it." I think that's pretty much the philosophy that
Did he really say that?
Yeah, he did. Yeah. Carlo, you've been a great guest today. Thank you for joining me and sort of really, I think, boiling down AI into a much more. You don't have to eat the whole elephant, right? It's you can just chew it as you go along, which is good. And you guys, yourself and Rob at Kashima, do a brilliant job of that. I've got a couple of questions to ask you about you, though, as a human being. Because I noticed today particularly that you're just mirroring me. So I'm quite interested to know. Well, yeah, thank you. To know whether your choices for these questions are the same. Favorite food?
Oh, tiramisu.
Favorite drink?
Oh, alcoholic?
You choose.
Coffee. Black coffee, no sugar.
Okay, that's 2 out of 2 so far, by the way, which is slightly worrying me.
Oh, really?
Favorite film?
Godfather Part 1.
Ooh, you see, I'm Part 2. Maybe we're not the same person. If you had to choose beach or mountains?
Mountains.
Good choice. Tell me something about you that nobody really knows about you.
No, I can't do that.
Okay, that's kind of blows up the question, really, doesn't it? But anyway. So, let's just say that the answer is, I can't do that. That's fine. That's no problem.
Can't do that. Sorry.
Yeah, that's good. Final question: where would we find you at a weekend?
You'll find me on a boat out in the Arabian Gulf, either chilling or fishing.
Nice. That sounds like a very nice way to spend the weekend. Carlo, it's been an absolute pleasure, as it always is, chatting with you. Thank you so much for your time today on the ChatGCC podcast. You can listen to these episodes online, or you can soon join ChatGCC as we launch the membership program this spring. I know you guys have been very instrumental in the creation of ChatGCC. We've got some live events coming up in Dubai later on this year as well. So there's an awful lot going on in this part of the world, and we're very keen to have more people be part of that. So if you are listening or watching this anywhere, please do come and find out how you can join ChatGCC. But for now, Carlo, enjoy the rest of your week. Happy April Fool's Day, by the way. We haven't gone anywhere near that. And it's my birthday.
That's
so
going to be my answer.
Yeah, maybe. There you go. It's actually my birthday, so I am actually an April Fool. So
happy birthday, Richard.
Thank you very much. That explains most of my style, to be honest. So, but there we are. If in fact I have any. But you've been a great guest, and thank you for joining me. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. My name's Richard Askam. We'll see you somewhere soon.